took the night route home because it shaved 10 minutes off the drive and let me avoid traffic lights that never seemed to work properly. After midnight, the highway cut straight through open land, no businesses, no houses, just long stretches of asphalt and reflective signs that flashed white and vanished. About 20 minutes in, I noticed headlights behind me that hadn't changed distance once, not gaining, not falling back, perfectly steady, like we were connected by an invisible bar. I slowed slightly. The car slowed with me. I changed lanes. It followed, smooth and patient. When I sped up, it matched that too. Never aggressive, never urgent, just present enough to stay noticed. I told myself it was coincidence until I took the exit ramp early, one I never used. The headlights followed without hesitation. The ramp curved hard, dropping into a narrower road that shouldn't have been busy at that hour. The car stayed behind me, close now, close enough that my mirrors filled with its glare. The road twisted through trees, the kind of stretch where radio stations fade and your phone loses signal bar by bar. I told myself to keep driving, not to stop, not to acknowledge it. The car behind me flicked its high beams once, not flashing, just a brief reminder. My chest tightened. I took another turn, then another, choosing roads at random, but the headlights stayed, locked in place. At a stop sign, the car rolled up behind me, so close I could feel its engine through my seat. I didn't turn around. When I finally reached my neighborhood, relief hit so hard my hands shook. Streetlights, familiar turns, houses asleep behind dark windows. The car followed me in, slower now, unhurried. I pulled into my driveway and cut the engine. The headlights stayed on at the end of the street, pointed directly at my house. I waited, counting breaths. The car didn't leave. I went inside without turning my back to the window. I locked the door, then stood there, listening. Minutes passed. Then I heard it, soft and close. The sound of tires on gravel, not driving away. Pulling into the space beside my house. My phone vibrated once in my pocket. A notification from a navigation app I hadn't opened. Route updated, it read. Destination reached. The drive-through stayed open past midnight because that's when the city thinned out enough to feel honest. I worked alone most nights, headset humming softly, fryer ticking behind me, the menu board glowing against the dark like a lighthouse for bad decisions. Around 2:17 a.m., a car rolled in slow, stopping a full car length back from the speaker. I waited for the chime. Nothing. I cleared my throat and asked for an order. Silence stretched just long enough to feel intentional before a voice finally answered, low and calm, asking if we were still serving. I said yes. The car didn't move. I asked again for the order. The voice asked my name. That wasn't unusual, but the way it was asked made it feel less like curiosity and more like confirmation. I told them I couldn't give that out. The car crept forward an inch, tires crunching softly on gravel. The voice apologized and ordered something simple, Nothing customized, nothing memorable. When I told them to pull forward, they didn't. Instead, they asked how late I stayed. I repeated the instruction, louder this time. The car finally rolled toward the window, slow enough that I could see the driver's side mirror, shaking slightly, like someone inside was leaning too close to it. The window slid open, and the smell hit me first. Not rot or anything dramatic, just stale air that felt trapped too long. The driver never looked at me directly. His eyes stayed fixed on the counter behind me, on the reflection in the stainless steel, watching my movements through surfaces. Instead of turning his head, he paid in cash, exact change, placed carefully, one bill at a time. While I waited for the receipt to print, he leaned closer and asked if anyone ever came looking for me after work. I told him to pull ahead to the pickup window. He smiled at the glass, not at me, and did exactly that. I watched the car sit there long after the food was ready. When I opened the second window, the driver was gone. The car idled, door open, empty. I called out, heart racing, but the lot stayed still. I shut the window, locked the door, and called my manager. By the time she arrived, the car was gone. No tire marks, no sound of it leaving. Just the headset, still warm against my ear, crackling softly. When I clocked out at dawn, my phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. A single message waited on the screen. You forgot to ask me if I wanted it to go. The last train of the night only ran if enough people were waiting, or at least that was what the board claimed. There was no timetable and no countdown, only a dull green message glowing above the platform. While the station slowly emptied itself of sound, I stood alone under flickering lights, listening to the city thin out into distant hums and hollow echoes. Every few minutes, footsteps sounded from deep inside the tunnel, but no one ever appeared. My phone showed no signal, and the station clock remained frozen at 12:17, its second hand locked in place, as if time itself had decided not to move forward. When the train arrived, it did so without warning or noise. There was no rush of air and no vibration through the platform, only a sudden presence where empty track had been seconds earlier. The door slid open slowly, revealing an interior that felt wrong in ways I couldn't immediately name. The lighting was flat and lifeless, the seats too clean, the windows dark like mirrors reflecting nothing. Other passengers were already inside, seated far apart, all facing forward with rigid posture. None of them looked at me. I stepped onto the train because the platform lights behind me shut off at the same time, leaving no real choice. The doors sealed themselves shut, and the train began moving, not with the sway of rails, but with a smooth, unsettling glide. Outside the windows, there were no tunnels or passing lights, only endless darkness, stretching in every direction. A man near the center clutched a briefcase so tightly his knuckles had turned white. A woman several rows ahead mouthed the same word repeatedly, though no sound escaped her lips. That was when I noticed that no one blinked and no one breathed deeply enough to fog the air. I tried to speak, but my voice felt swallowed before it could leave my throat. Fear set in when the train skipped stations without slowing, passing places that should have existed but didn't. The screen above the door flickered on, displaying a list of names instead of destinations. As the train moved, names vanished one by one, and each time one disappeared, a passenger rose calmly and walked toward a door at the far end of the car where no door should have been. When it opened, there was no platform waiting, only darkness, and each person stepped into it without hesitation. When my name appeared on the screen, panic tightened my chest until breathing felt difficult. I stood on instinct, moving toward the door as the others had, but something in me resisted at the last second. I grabbed a pole and held on as the train seemed to pull against my body. The screen flickered violently, my name blurring before disappearing completely. The door slammed shut, the train lurched, and light suddenly flooded the windows. I found myself alone as the train screeched to a stop at a familiar station, releasing me onto the platform. Behind me, the train vanished, and the board above blinked once before displaying a final message. Last train departed. Capacity met.